Welcome back to the second hour of Natural Blues on CKUA. I'm Holger Petersen. This is Calgary's Bluesland Horn Band. Bluesland Horn Band from Calgary. That's taken from their CD called Radio Waves, and we just heard the track called The Warm-Up. It's my pleasure during this afternoon's Natural Blues program, this hour two, to welcome Terry Med of the Bluesland Horn Band, based out of Calgary, and thanks for making the drive up, Terry.
Hey, Holger, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, it's great to see you, and I hope you're having a good Canada Day long weekend so
It's
far.
a great day for the blues.
Terry, we've been playing the Bluesland Horn Band on CKUA for months now, and especially Radio Waves, and previous to that, your second album, which had so many great New Orleans grooves on it. And this is the first time we've had a chance to sit down and do an interview, so it's a pleasure to be able to do that. Maybe you could start by giving us a little bit of background on how all this evolved for the Bluesland Horn Band.
Well, starting in 1900... No, a little after that. This band was formed in Calgary in the late 90s. We moved there from Vancouver and started putting the group together and recorded the first album and reformed the group in 2013. So we're going into our fourth season playing. And have done the next two albums, and we're typically an 8-piece group, and we focus on our version. Our take on the blues is pretty broad, so we're all over the map on if it's blues based, we like to play it. Soul, jazz, straight up blues, funky blues. We like it all.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, being an 8-piece band, I mean, that's a real luxury to be able to hear it as a blues lover and a blues fan, but also to stand on stage as the guitarist and horn arranger and so involved in the recording process to hear that wonderful sound in a live situation. It's pretty rare.
Oh, it is. It's for myself. I consider it a real luxury and a privilege to play with these great musicians. They're good guys to get along with, and they're good players. And you get on stage with a good sound system and that sort of thing, and that's what it's all about.
I'm going to ask you to introduce some of the members as we go along through this program. We're going to listen to another track taken from the latest recording, Radio Waves. This is called Cold Heart, and maybe by way of introducing this song as well, you can kind of highlight a couple of the players and some of the backgrounds of the players in the band.
Yeah, you bet. Well, on bass here is Brian Czar, and he's pretty widely traveled across the world. I know he's played the Montreux Festival and a lot of groups along the way, and he landed up in Calgary, and we're really pleased to have him in the group. And taking up the drum chair for the last year with the band has been Gavin Saroshan. And Gavin is one of those guys that is comfortable playing a straight-up Sam Lay shuffle or, any of the kind of linear funk playing. And he reads really well as our drummer really has to read to play with the horns and keep the shots and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the bedrock that we ride on.
This tune is written by yourself, Terry Med. It's called Cold Heart from the latest recording, Radio Waves. Would you like to say anything about the composition or any elements of this tune?
Well, this song I think is pretty self-explanatory, and I think it's always best to have the listener, take their own interpretation.
We'll do that. This is Bluesland Horn Band. Calgary's Bluesland Horn Band from Radio Waves. We just heard the track called Cold Heart. And my guest during this hour of Natural Blues this afternoon is Terry Med, who's the producer, songwriter, tracking engineer. I'm reading your credits here. Song and horn arrangements, electric, acoustic, and slide guitars, and background vocals.
And he makes the coffee as well.
And we should mention that the special guest on that one was Kenny Blues Boss Wayne, playing some great piano.
Yeah, he just really has that style down cold, doesn't he? And I was saying he gave us 2 tracks, and he said, choose. I'll give you the Chicago style or the St. Louis style, and it was a pleasure choosing.
Terry, we want to mention that the Bluesland Horn Band will be appearing in Edmonton. That's next Saturday, July the 9th. It starts at 9 o'clock, and that'll be at Shakers Roadhouse on Yellowhead Trail. So once again, that's the Bluesland Horn Band next Saturday, July 9th at Shakers Roadhouse. Your second album was kind of a tribute in many ways to the music of New Orleans. It's called Down in New Orleans, and any horn band that loves to play blues and R&B has to, of course, acknowledge New Orleans. And I'm just curious about your own appreciation of that kind of music, where that started for you.
Well, it started probably in the 50s. I remember getting our first stereo in our home. I was raised in the country west of Edmonton, and got our first stereo, and we had a Louis Armstrong record. I think that was probably my first blues record. My dad was a big fan of the big bands and that sort of thing, and so had an appreciation for that. And then later, just a couple of years ago, I had an opportunity to play down there. John Reed, our tenor player, also directs a big band, and he took the band down and asked if we wanted to go along and play, and we said, you bet. So we got to play there in Jackson Square and at the Mint and some of the hotels, and it was so exciting, playing in this place where you knew that Louis Armstrong and the Meters and all those people had walked along, and so we were certainly soaking up the music. And one of the things that we got was formal instruction actually on first and second line music from a wonderful street musician there named Doreen. She was a clarinet player, and her whole family would be out there busking, and they were wonderful. Her littlest girl, maybe 5 or 6, starting to play the drums, and you see how it all goes together. And so she taught us about first line, second line, and it was a little bit of a departure from, some takes on it are that, the band is the front and the second line is the people. Her take on it was more, the first line comes out of the church and goes with the departed off to the graveyard. Second line forms up and goes off to celebrate that person's life. And so when they're an appropriate distance from the church, there's a kind of a fanfare on the horn, and that starts the drums and the horns going, and then all the dancers fall in behind that, and they go around through the streets and the bars and that sort of thing, celebrating the person's life. And I thought that was a pretty great take on the whole first and second line New Orleans music.
Did you arrange the horns on St. James Infirmary?
We got some help on this from Johnny Summers, actually a trumpet player in Calgary, and this features our own horn section, so John and Paul Evans on Barry, and John doubles on clarinet on this, and the feature here is Dr. Z, Doug Zacharias, and he plays what I call the Blue Orleans trumpet. And so because we wanted to relate it to Louis Armstrong's version a little bit, we asked him if he'd mind playing the kind of fanfare from West End Blues, and that's where we start, and then we go into our own. The song arrangement is our own.
This is Bluesland from their second CD. It's called Down in New Orleans. great version of St. James Infirmary Blues. That's taken from the Bluesland recording called Down in New Orleans, the second of 3 recordings by Calgary's Bluesland Horn Band. Terry Med is my special guest during this afternoon's program. And Terry, you said earlier that you grew up west of Edmonton in a rural community?
Yeah, absolutely. A little place called Millbank, and it was close to Tomahawk and Drayton Valley. And I went to high school at Seba Beach, and fond memories there.
Mm-hmm. And you come from a musical family as well.
Yeah, my dad's family, they had a family band in Saskatchewan, and the family split up. And so all these kids and the mother landed up in the Depression in that area. And boy, it was hard times for them. And they played the community dances. And it was probably a lifesaver for them. So, music's been in our family for several generations, and so I just kind of carried that tradition on. Started playing drums with my dad and my uncles in their bands, and kind of started getting integrated into playing in groups and that sort of thing.
Well, Terry, you were part of a very successful band in Edmonton called Footloose in the 1970s, having had some major airplay around North America and perhaps beyond that. Was that the first recording band that you were in?
Yeah, pretty much. I think our first experience in the studio was with Barry Allen and Wes Dacus with a group called Missouri. We were a blues-based group. We had 2 drummers. We were kind of excited about this brand new band called the Allman Brothers, and so we were doing that for a while. And that was our first maybe time trying to lay some tracks down. And then in the 70s and 80s in this city, and probably most in Alberta, there was so much work around for groups. As you know, all the hotels, they had a tavern that was employing a group 6 nights a week.
Usually a huge tavern, by the way, right?
Big,
not like the taverns of today.
Almost 1,000 seaters. Some I think about the Kingsway and some of those, and then they had the lounge that employed groups, and then they had something called cabarets that did the back 3. And so if you went into a tavern and were good enough to hang in there till the end of the week, you were going to be really tight as you came out. And so in putting together a group for the cabarets, we took some players from different groups, and that was George Goodall and I formed that group. And I brought Kurt Smith along with me, and George brought Tim Feen along, and we both wanted to play with Dwayne Phelan because he was such a funky drummer. And we thought what we were building was a funk group, and we thought natural, we'll play cabarets, people are dancing. And then Tim and Doug Buck had recorded this song, had written this song. So we did a demo version of it in the basement of Mother's Music, and I took it into Gary McDonald over at Damon, and he thought it had real potential, so we set about trying to record it, and it took us a long time. I think it took us about a month to finally lay that down, and we did a single and took it around to all the radio stations. Everybody, promptly passed on it, and as often happens, that's pretty much the norm. But Gary sent it out to different stations, and a lady in Windsor named Rosalie Tremblay, she's quite famous, and she received the award this year for Lifetime Achievement, I believe, at the Junos. And she would decide to play what she wanted to hear. And so she's broken a number of records. It's phenomenal, the amount of records that, she started playing and then the others would pick up. And that was just happened to be the luck for us that she liked the record, started playing it, and then it made its way across and went to number 1 in a lot of markets. And that was kind of our foray into pop music. And after 3 or 4 years, we'd kind of run that horse to ground and decided we wanted to get back into the blues and funk. So we added horns, and out of that group came the Cold Sweat Horn Band.
And the record was Leaving Tomorrow for Maui, and the band was Footloose, and it did well in the States, didn't it? Did that allow you and give you the opportunity to tour down there?
Well, we didn't. We were our thinking around that time was that we really wanted to see a couple more albums be that successful before we were going to, leave jobs. Some of the guys were in university and that sort of thing. And sure enough, the group breaks up after a couple of years, so it didn't go any further. But it was an interesting time in the business at that time. There was a real downturn. You'll recall as well. I know that one of the labels that was going to pick us up in the U.S. Promptly went under. Just after we got the thing going, and that happens. It's part of the business.
Terry Med is my special guest during this afternoon's Natural Blues program. Terry from the Bluesland Horn Band. They'll be playing in Edmonton next Saturday, July the 8th at Shaker's Roadhouse. We're going to take a very short break, and then we'll be back with another track, an instrumental by Bluesland. That was Calgary's Bluesland with Comin' Home Baby, taken from their second album called Down in New Orleans. And Bluesland is performing in Edmonton. That's next weekend, next Saturday at Shaker's Roadhouse. That's Saturday, July 9th, and that starts at 9 o'clock. A very rare appearance by this 8-piece Calgary band. And joining me this afternoon on Natural Blues is Terry Med of the Bluesland Horn Band. Terry, we were talking about horn arrangements. You do some of the horn arrangements, and I think you did all of them on the last record. We were talking a little bit about New Orleans, and different regions in the States have different styles of horn arrangements. And I guess as a musician and as an arranger, you can kind of spot those styles and those differences. Can you tell us a bit about the difference between arranging horns for New Orleans music and, say, Memphis soul music?
Yeah, well, I've done some of the arrangements. If somebody puts a gun to my head, I can maybe do a chart. I really take my hat off to some of the masters like Miles Jackson, who does a lot of orchestrations for us, and he's really our Alan Toussaint, and I know Johnny Summers has done some. But, I think of New Orleans horn line. When I hear a section going, if you got three horns, one's on the root, one's on the minor, and one's moving between a 6 and a 7, that gives us a kind of a minory New Orleans kind of sound. Whereas, some of the other stuff you might think of as a little bit more straight ahead. Somebody who's interested in New Orleans arranging, I'd think would probably do well to study Alan Toussaint's work. He was the master of that, really.
And I think one of the things that he did that was a little unusual compared to the R&B of the 60s was that he would have the horn sections. Each horn would start at a different place and come in and kind of weave in and out. Whereas a lot of the Memphis stuff kind of, is in chunks, and everybody's playing at the same time, playing same changes.
That's a great point. Yeah, it's fun when they start to do those canons, they're called, and one follow the other, and kind of a neat style.
You've had some experience working with Vancouver players and being part of the Vancouver scene, I take it, for a while as well?
Yeah, a little bit. We moved out there in the 80s till late 90s, and I played in small blues bands on the North Shore where we lived, and occasionally did some things a little bigger. We got to play the Commodore, which was really fun, and the Yale Hotel. What a education in the blues every Saturday, going there and listening to Tim Hershey and Dave Vidal and just a bunch of really strong players in a nice sounding room with a good PA. And you'd learn something new every weekend. And my old buddy Hankster Leonhardt was around there, and we played in groups in Edmonton. We had some blues and funk groups, horn bands here, and then we played a bit in Vancouver as well, and always enjoy seeing him.
Well, in your travels to Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, those Saturday afternoon jam sessions, and of course all those blues legends coming through in the late 70s, 80s, 90s. Did you have a chance to sit in with some of those people?
Well, a bit in some of the groups, and like B.B. King's drummer comes through and then decides he likes Vancouver and stays there for a number of years, and there were so many players out there, and not a lot of work. It wasn't like the prairies in the 70s and 80s that had all those hotels that would have rooms. The work was a little less for all the great players that were out there. So I kind of confined ourselves to the North Shore and the pubs from the Raven to the Trawler and through.
And all stops in between.
Yeah.
It's a Spirit of the West song that goes like that.
They were on the North Shore, and that song was about exactly that, and I played in all those rooms.
Terry, let's listen to a track from the first recording by Bluesland, featuring the Cold Sweat Horns. That's the credit on this particular one. Could you tell us a bit about this particular recording and how this came about?
Yeah, well, Hot Tonight's a bit of a salute to just across the bridge on Hastings was a club called Jake's, and there was the Al Foreman band was playing there all the time, and my old buddy Dave Barton, we played in some groups in Edmonton here, was playing in Al's band and got to know them and would always sit in with them, and so it was just about one of those fun nights where you're going out to Jake's Tavern and you're going to have some fun playing, and that's what that song's about, Hot Tonight.
Flash for the sea. It's gonna get hot tonight. Yeah, so hot tonight. I'm gonna take a shot tonight. Be on the spot tonight. It's gonna get hot, hot, hot tonight.
Calgary's Bluesland Horn Bands from their very first album, and that was recorded, what year was that recorded?
2002, maybe, something like that, and featured Pat Hatherley on the lead vocals. We were really so pleased to work with her. She's since retired, but probably still, she's a great songwriter, great singer, as you can hear, and is probably still writing songs. She's down in High River now, I think, and sure enjoyed working with her on the first version of the band.
Terry, we're going to go back to your latest recording called Radio Waves and listen to a couple of tracks from that. And just also want to point out that I really love the sound on the last couple of records. The new record, Radio Waves, has a really sophisticated sound to it. And you were saying that you basically have your own, you called it a project studio?
Yeah, it's a small project studio that we do our recording in, and we have it set up kind of like a little factory, you know. So we write the songs, we demo them, and then the guys come in and do the sessions. And we're pretty routine about doing this now after a couple albums, and it is really a luxury to be able to put them together like that. I usually get a little help on the mixing from Ken Burke, who is the head engineer at Blue Wave in Vancouver, and Perry Barrett does the mastering. He's down in Muscle Shoals in Florida now, I think. But by and large, yeah, we do the tracking in our own studio.
Let's listen to another track from the new recording by Bluesland Horn Band, Radio Waves. And tell us a bit about this one. I think it's called Choose Me.
Yeah, it's called You Chose Me. And, you know, we're so pleased in this band to have Marty Cochran singing with us. He plays a little bit of harp and acoustic guitar as well. And Marty came into the studio on another project. I hadn't met him before, and when he started singing, I kind of heard a horn band around him, and so we decided we better put the band back together, and really enjoy working with Marty. He's just a fine guy and a great singer.
We'll listen to that now. Calgary's own Bluesland Horn Band, taken from the Radio Waves recording. And my guest is Terry Med from the Bluesland Horn Band. You're playing in Edmonton next weekend. We should mention that again. That's at Shaker's Roadhouse. Starts at 9 o'clock, and it's next Saturday. You play from time to time around the province, and especially in Calgary, right?
Yeah, we've been going a little further afield. Did Red Deer last month, and we were out at a little festival in East Cooley and down in Lethbridge as well. So, yeah, we're really excited about coming up to Shakers. We hear they've got a great PA system in there, and it's a good room. So we're going to come up, and we're going to have some fun there.
And you mentioned you're working on another project as well.
Yeah, we always have something on the go, and we've got about maybe 13 or 14 songs under production right now that we hope will turn into our fourth album sometime next year.
Great. Well, Terry, I hope the band makes it to Northern Alberta on many more occasions in the near future. Want to finish off, and thank you first of all, but finish off with a tune from the new Radio Waves album. It's called Bad Business, and I got kind of a kick out of this when I first heard it, because being an 8-piece horn band, work is sometimes probably a little hard to find in Alberta cities. It's a challenge, I'm sure, to get everybody together as well.
Well, it's the passion of the music that really, drives, I think, larger groups like that. And, Bluesland wants to thank you, Holger, so much for your support, CKUA's support for the bands, and not just Alberta, but Canadian, international. And you yourself, 1969 was the first show of Natural Bliss.
CKUA, that's right.
Congratulations. That is an awesome accomplishment, and the Stony Plain Records, etc. No doubt we do it for the passion that we have for music, and that's what makes it fun.
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. We'll finish off with Bad Business. Anything you'd care to say about this tune before we play it, Terry?
John wrote this, and
John Reed, yep.
Yes, John Reed. We're still looking for a videographer. I think we can see a video that might go along with this one pretty easily, and anybody that's been in the music business might appreciate these lyrics.
Bad Business. Calgary's Bluesland Horn Band, and that featured Guy Plekash as vocalist and keyboard player on that track. Thanks for joining us this afternoon on Natural Blues. I'm Holger Petersen on this very special Canada Day long weekend. Stay tuned for Terry David Mulligan and Lionel's Vinyls. We'll finish off with one final selection by the Bluesland Horn Band. This is called Buffalo Jump.